Hey everyone, I wanted to take a few minutes and talk through karma. It's one of the more common terms that shows up in the spiritual space, and yet all the while it's probably one of the most misunderstood or maybe incomplete concepts. So we've all heard the expression karma's a bitch, which, fine. But what exactly is karma? And more importantly, how do we resolve any karma that we may have accumulated? So over the course of the discussion, I'll try to explain it, and then I'll also give you some practical tools, a methodology that you can use to balance or to resolve karmic debt. So put simply, karma is just cause and effect, which means that an action or a word, you could even sometimes in extreme cases, it can be energetic, so it can be like thoughts, for example, have somehow or another had an effect. And in the context of it being karmic, it's something that's low vibrational. So the actions or words involved here are oriented around shame and guilt and anger and contempt and hurtfulness and selfish intention. It's all that really low vibrational energy that inevitably shows up while we're incarnate. And the effect, of course, would be that it's harmed another. And then quite simply, it's also profoundly harmed us. And that more completely is what karma is. It's low vibrational things that we've said or done that have come forth and carried with us an energetic consequence that is a burden for us. So our acts, which maybe at the time were rooted in defensiveness or simple egotic manifestation, have now become an imbalance that is burdening our mental or emotional being and oftentimes impairing our physical health and or leaving us energetically susceptible because it's a variation within our auric field. And so if we think about the cause and the effect, we also think that it has a future consequence. We can recognize that this is a universal law. And if we realize the perfection of the universe, it's not hard then to ask this simple question, why would the divine create such a law? And when you realize the answer, it's really quite profound and beautiful. And that is that if it's the ego or the human self that's created some type of harm to another or to self, then it's not with divine intention, that it's the human self that is now carrying the individual away from the divine. And so the divine's intention is that one day we would all profoundly make our way back to the source and reunite. So the desire that we have to be love and compassion is the same desire that the divine has, that we would experience it. And ultimately, it's that love and compassion that calls us back. So as much as we desire to return to the heavens, so too do the heavens desire to have us return. And if we're creating too much karma, or any karma for that matter, if it's left unbalanced, then it's carrying us away from source. It's going the wrong direction. It's the human direction or the egotic direction which is at play. And if that karma is left unchecked, or those events of low vibration are unchecked, meaning you kill somebody and never get caught for it and then go forth and harm another and harm another and harm another, it's without the balancing effect, you'll just continue in the wrong direction indefinitely. What karma is doing quite simply is ensuring that eventually you return to the divine. And insofar as we've all inadvertently created some form of karmic debt, which is just the nature of our being here under this veil of illusion and forgetting, the best thing that you can do is seek forgiveness. And the forgiveness for the karma has to be with very explicit intention, and it can lead to profound balancing. And so let's just take a simple example. I use the example of murder. It's a little bit extreme. Most of us aren't murderers. But the next one that comes to mind, which is a bit controversial and it's not so black and white, is abortion. And that's constantly been a tussle, if you will, within the realms of the human mind versus the spiritual or sometimes religious mind. To put simply, some incarnations actively include an aborted fetus. Meaning before you've arrived, your pre-incarnation plan was for perhaps an accidental pregnancy or an unwanted pregnancy that you ended up choosing to abort. And insofar as that choice was designed pre-incarnation, the soul of the other individual never entered into the physical body, and their free will or their path was never interfered with. That does happen. It just happens to be less common. The more common circumstance is that there's an accidental pregnancy that you're not ready for. And so you go forth with your own free will, oftentimes being influenced by low vibrational energy, not always, but often low vibrational energy such as fear or anxieties, and you choose not to have the child. It's fine. But insofar as the pre-incarnation plan was for you to become a parent at that point, and there was another soul who had agreed contractually to become a child to you, the act of the abortion is effectively interfering with both of those plans. And so whether it happened a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, any type of karmic event, and it can be something simpler like you've cheated on your partner or you've lied your way through some type of relationship, if it's rooted in low vibrational manifestation, which is there's selfish intention, there's guilt, there's shame, there's animosity or frustration, all those energies are ultimately indications of human or egotic motivations, which would usually point to karma. And the solution to it is balance, which is to restore your energetic body, which is carrying this distortion, to a state of harmony or high vibration. And so how do you do that? First and foremost, you have to acknowledge that the action at hand here, whether it's cheating on your husband, for example, or wife, or whether it's aborting a child, the action at hand was entirely and utterly your choice. So you have to recognize your free will and your independent thought and your choice to perform as you did. Okay? When you have ownership of the action, then you move to the second stage, which is the identification of the emotions present which led to the act. So let's say you cheated on your husband and you felt like he was an unloving husband, or maybe he had actually gone and cheated on you first, so it was some form of retribution. You just start to examine it. And then you bring up the emotions. I felt vulnerable. I felt unloved. I felt ultimately some form of shame or guilt. And you can see and feel those emotions, holding them present. And with those two elements at hand, seek forgiveness. And in this context, it's seeking forgiveness for yourself. It's recognizing that this is a burden that you've been carrying, that those actions were an imbalance that have weighed on you. And insofar as they've weighed on you, they've interfered with your auric body, which is your force field, your protection, and they left your mind and body vulnerable to attack, which is your mind. You might be feeling the energy around you. The low vibrational consciousness can permeate more easily. Your energetic space is going to become a greater liability to your own well-being by virtue of you carrying these distortions. So first and foremost, you request forgiveness for self. Secondly, if you've cheated on your partner, you can seek forgiveness, less important actually, remarkably, because the burden is with you. But if you have murdered somebody or you've aborted a child that otherwise wanted to be born, then you're going to have to request forgiveness from the soul or the individual that had their free will otherwise interfered with as well. And then finally, I like to ask for forgiveness for my physical body or sometimes your mind, but because they've sustained the brunt of the consequences of having your force field impaired by virtue of your karmic debt weighing on your energetic body. And so you can seek forgiveness for your physical or emotional body that has suffered at the hands of those choices. And it's actually a very beautiful, very liberating moment. I do this while I'm in usually a deep state of meditation, and I sit very quietly and I ask the infinite creator to bring forth awareness of some karma that requires clearing. And sometimes I have to sit there for a long time. Sometimes I ask for it in my dreams. But when it does end up coming through, I know it. I have a knowing. Some of the karma literally dates back to when I was a child, involving my siblings that I've actually verbally sought resolution with, but have had to go ahead and clear energetically as well. And it's actually the most beautiful moment because you relive the emotions, You see them just for what they are. There's no judgment. This is a beautiful, loving space that you're entering into. And then you simply ask with whatever language feels right for forgiveness. Forgiveness of self and the debt that you've been carrying, and the desire to balance your karma and move into a more harmonious state with self. And when that's all said and done, you can actively go forth, and usually with a high degree of gratitude. Some people actually will contact the other person involved and extend it into some type of verbal forgiveness. Once again, it's not actually as necessary as people think, but you can go forth and once again, at bedtime, ask for greater clarity on any outstanding debt that can be brought to you in your dreams. And if you do this enough, you'll start to notice your whole being will start to grow lighter. If you're not growing lighter, if you're not feeling the benefits of it, in all likelihood, you haven't tapped into the karma, or you're still resisting the acceptance and the ownership of the actions, or you're still forcing away the true emotions that were prevalent at the time. And those are some of the big considerations to know whether or not you're doing it properly. I will say that although people oftentimes feel as if they don't have clarity on the direction that they're supposed to be going in their life, which is fair because we're under this veil of illusion and forgetting, if you find yourself living through your heart and exhibiting love at every step of the way, it's an indication of wonderful alignment. And if you should find yourself suffering, mentally or emotionally suffering, and not existing in a heartfelt space nearly as often as you would like, it's almost consistently an indication of bad misalignment, which 1,000,000 times over will mean tremendous karmic debt that is impairing your ability to find the love in the moment and move to a high vibrational state. All right, everyone, that's all I had for you today. Love and light as always. I hope this is a help, and feel free to share any comments that you may have at the bottom. If you find your life is a little bit challenging, or you're otherwise trying to figure out whether there's a karmic debt, you can open up the discussion, and the community usually wants to receive it. All right, light and love. We'll talk to everyone else soon.